I got him.
Can you guys hear me or not?
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I'll hear you.
Okay,
Can you get
I'm
your
working with a new
spotlighted?
mic, so we'll see how this works. I'm
It's
going to
perfect.
apologize. I'm going to apologize
Sound good,
up front.
Scott.
Okay. I'm going to apologize up front. You're going to get a little motion sickness because I got a small shop and one camera. So things are going to get spun around a little bit once in a while. So the first thing I want to talk about is bandsaws and how to set them up. So I'm going to spin you around, flip the camera. Here's my bandsaw. I'm going to move you a little closer. So if you've listened to Mr. Snodgrass, he tells you to tighten your blades way too tight. I have a lot of sawmill experience from sawing lumber, and you don't need your blades that tight. All you're doing is stretching the snot out of them. So if you look at my blade, my thing is up a little high. Safety Sue, my glasses are right here. Crank this up a little. If you can see, I can push this blade almost a good 1/8 of an inch, if not to a 1/4 of an inch, with halfway up on the blades itself. So that's about what you want. This particular blade is the blade I use for sawing bowl blanks. It's a 1/2 inch, 3-tooth negative rake tooth, and it's extremely sharp. It will take your fingers off. So now I'm going to switch you back around. If I can get my camera to hold up. And I'm going to show you, this is a small blade. This would be for doing small work, tight circles. This is a nasty blade. This is what I use for resawing. And I use it maybe for making veneer. It's an 1 1/4 inch blade.
Hey, Scott.
This is for doing major. What's that?
Scott, can you
ahead,
mention the number of teeth?
Okay, the last one I just showed was, I think that one's 3 teeth per inch or 2 teeth per inch. The one before that, I have no idea how many it is. It's probably 20 or 30 per inch. This one here is an 1.5 inch blade. And this I use for cutting like white oak and things like that from a log to make lumber.
Wow.
That's all it's used for. And it's 1 tooth for every inch. And it's a nasty, nasty, nasty blade.
It cuts right through the wood, don't it?
Yes, it slices very well. So then here's a 3/4 inch. I think this is like 4 or 5 teeth per inch. It's another bowl sawing blade. I don't use it a lot because you can't cut tight circles with it. The blade I have on now, I can go down to about a 4, maybe a 5-inch circle pretty easily without having too much problem. This isn't an 1/8 inch or a 1/4 inch skip tooth blade. This you can use for cutting patterns like Billy does on his scroll saw. This will cut some pretty tight radiuses. And then we get into this little guy. This one will cut just about any radius to the scroll saw cut. It's less than 1/8 of an inch. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's pretty small. And if I can get it to focus on the teeth, there's like 18 teeth per inch. So it's real good for scrolling. Now, if you're going to scroll with a saw, with a bandsaw, which you can do, you have to take the back edge off this blade. You have to take this edge off with a diamond card or some kind of hone, a stone hone. You want to make this round so you can back that blade up, which is one of the things most people tell you can't do on a bandsaw. That's not true. If you got the tension right and it's centered right in the blade and you got your bearings down close to the workpiece, you can use it like a scroll saw. I have done it. That's how I know that. So all my blades are all rounded in the back. I do it to all my blades. Even these big blades are rounded. They just make things a little safer, because there are burrs on the back of these blades when you get them, because they're basically punch metal.
How do you
They
round
come through a
them?
machine. I round them with a
Diamond.
diamond hone, like just like what you do to a skew. You have your little diamond hone for touching up your skew. You can use it on the back of these blades.
So turn it on and just put it up against it.
Nope, you do it by hand. You don't ever want to do that. Get your fingers that close to especially a blade like this one. It'll take your fingers off in a heartbeat and won't even think about it. So I do it by hand.
Yeah.
I can turn you back around so you can see my bandsaw. I'll move you a little closer.
When you say you do it by hand, you've got it mounted in the bandsaw and you turn your bandsaw wheels by hand?
That is correct.
Okay,
So let me grab a hone. I happen to have one right here. So all I have is a little card hone like this. Can you see that?
Yep.
Now I'm going to open my door with the machine unplugged, and you're just going to hold this hone here like this and go around your blade. And you can I don't know if you can hear that in my mic or not, but that's all you got to do to it. Both sides of the blade, just take the burr off. So while I got the door open, I'm going to swing this around. If you see how that blade is centered, so the gullet is in the center of the wheel, not the center of the blade. So this is the gullet. The indentation should be as centered, as close to the center of the wheel as you can get it when you put it on properly. One other thing I want to talk about while we're on the bandsaw, and then I'll switch to doing some fun stuff, is when you got that bandsaw blade dirty, like, let's see, where did I put it? Like this one, from cutting green wood, you do not clean this on the saw. Any chemical that you put on this blade is going to take that tire on that bandsaw and it's going to destroy it. Overnight, it will destroy that rubber, or if you're using the urethane, it'll destroy it. And don't ask me how I know that. I did it by accident. Those tires are about 6 to 8 months old, and it took me 4 hours each wheel to replace them, and 2 people. And you have to boil them in water first.
Yep.
So they're not fun to change. And so when I go to clean those, I just use a piece of wood, like a wooden shim or another piece of hardwood, and I just scrape them clean. And if you got your brushes and stuff set right in your bandsaw, you shouldn't have to clean them anyways. Even with green wood, you shouldn't have to clean them. You can wipe them down with warm, soapy water, but that would be the harshest chemical that I would use on them. If you use this nice blade cleaning stuff that everybody sells, I guarantee you within 24 hours, you'll be changing those tires on that bandsaw. And when they explode, they scare the snot out of you. Because when it exploded, it exploded. I had rubber all over and pieces of blade all over, and every stuff tangled every which way you can imagine. So I learned that by experience about 6-8 months ago. So enough for the talking the bandsaw. Now I'm going to show you some jigs that I use. So this is a jig that I use for starting out a round log and getting it flat. So everybody knows you're not supposed to run anything round through a machine. So this is what I've come up with to do. You can cut lumber with it. You can cut veneer with it. You can just flatten logs so that you can start using your fence, whatever you want. So it's a homemade jig. And I can't see a camera, so you guys gotta tell me if you can see this.
You're good.
This slides in and out. It fits in your T-slot, so it's got a guide fence to slide in your T-slot. And then these slide back and forth. And I'll show how this works. I'll actually put it on the saw and show you. But I'm gonna mount this piece. So this is how I'm gonna mount it. This is nothing but a screw clamp from our favoriteest place, Harbor Freight. And you just lock this fence down. It's just got 2 wing nuts in the back. I'll show you that in a minute. And you just clamp this between there. Now it's solid. It's part of this sled. And there's 2 wing nuts in the back that lock that faceplate down. This clamp is also adjustable up and down. You can see I got a grid pattern made so that I can adjust this up and down depending on the size of the log. And so now we can slice it off. So I'm going to take this off. I'm going to turn you back around again, and I'll put this on the saw and show you how I use this. I typically don't use this often because I use another method, but this is just another way to do it. So if you bear with me for a second. All right, now I'll turn you back around so you can see what I'm doing. Maybe I'll set you on this side. This might be a little better. Watch the blurriness. How's that? Can you see that, Dane?
Yeah. Can you move it a little bit closer?
No, that's about as close as I can get it.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be fine.
And that's about as close as I can get it. I only got a small table right here, so.
Can you
Okay.
move the fence a little further back?
Yep. Actually, I'm going to mount this log in here, Billy. And I got it pretty close to where it's going to go. So here we go. I want to cut this off and make this flat on this side. So I'm going to mount this in here. Like this. I'm going to clamp it down. If you notice, this edge of this blade is actually on the edge of the sled. So that's a straight line, parallel line to the blade. So if you want to cut angles, you can cut angles. You can do whatever you want. Get this cranked in here tight.
Can you move the metal fence on the left?
Yes, it's just a metal clamp and it slides. And I just got to get it so it clamps in here.
He means the
Rick is getting it
the
now.
bandsaw fence.
How about if I take that off?
Yeah,
Maybe
that'll
help.
work.
Does that
Even
help?
better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there we go.
mejor mucho.
So now I got this clamped in here. It's solid. I mean, you can see I'm wiggling the whole machine. Now I'm going to start this up. Make sure you got your bearings where you need them so they clear. It's going to be this simple.
What happened to audio?
It's probably the bandsaw cutting out. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I think it's Zoom cut out the audio on the when I started the bandsaw. My bandsaw is extremely loud. So I can barely hear you when it's running. So it just stopped.
No,
So you can see how
You're
easy.
fine. You're fine, Scott. You know, folks, keep in mind, Zoom will muffle machinery sounds. So if he's not talking, then you're not going to hear any audio.
Yep. So you can see how nice that sliced that. That's pretty smooth. Little sandpaper, you could probably use it as a board. So now if you wanted to slice boards, you would just move it over to slice boards. Or if you wanted to flatten another side, you just rotate the log and flatten another side. But at this point now, you can use your regular fence and start making your bowl blanks whatever thickness you want. You don't necessarily have to use this sled. You can if you want to. You don't have to. I just use it to flatten one side of a log that's maybe too high for my throat, but yet I want to get 2 bowls out of it maybe on each end. So that's all I use it for, is just to get one side flat. So any questions about how the jig works?
Yes, what did you call that, that bar that is holding the log?
So that's just a bar clamp that I got at Harbor Freight. And I can, hang on a second. I'll take it off so I can actually show it a little better.
Okay.
So it's slotted in the back.
I gotta make one of these.
Yeah, I like this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, y'all are gonna
So-
like this. It's pretty slick.
So I'm just gonna spin it around because it'll be easier for you to see. You can see this bar clamp's got a slot in the back. Can you see that? Right there.
Okay.
And it's
Gotcha.
slotted. You can buy these at Harbor Freight. All they did was made a piece of stock that goes in there like you would make for your runner on your, it would go in your T slot. So it just, the piece of wood fits in there and it's got a carriage bolt in it. And then it's adjustable right here. So you can take it off and move it up and down depending on the size of your log.
Wow.
Nice. That's a
So-
cool
So
idea.
it's pretty versatile. And
I
if
like,
you find out you didn't make the holes in the right places, like this one, that's the object of the grid pattern on this side. So now I have a grid pattern that's parallel to the rest of the jig. So you can see I can move, I can move this bar clamp. I can slide it this way. I can also slide it up and down. And I can also slide it so I can use, this is a 36-inch bar clamp on a 30-inch sled. So I could actually cut all the way out to 36 inches if I wanted to. I probably wouldn't do that without an outfeed table or some help because the log on this sled, 36 inches long, is going to be pretty heavy. But if you want to make boards, if you're making small boxes or you want to make finial blanks out of something, this is a great way to slice them off at the same way every time. The other thing I use this for is it's great. It's not necessarily a wood turning thing, but this also makes great tapers. If you can see, I can twist it and set it to make a taper. So if you wanted to taper some table legs or anything that you wanted to do and put taper in them, you can taper them with this jig as well.
The bottom of an
It
ornament
slides.
stand.
Yep.
Huh.
Or a bottom of an ornament stand. You could do that same thing with this.
Yeah.
So it's very versatile.
Hmm.
This one's also set up. I have a Powermatic 66 saw, table saw. And it just so happens that my guide track on this saw and that saw are exactly the same. So I can use it for cutting tapers on my table saw, which is pretty fortunate that they actually are the same distance from the blade. Kind of makes it convenient.
now, is
Right.
that
So-
blade a negative rake? Do you use,
Yes, this is a negative rake.
what's the advantage
So
of
instead of,
rake?
it pulls the sawdust to the middle, to the gullet, rather than to the edge.
Okay,
So normally your blade, this tooth would be faced out and this tooth would be faced out. These two teeth are slightly bent inward at
Okay.
different angles. So it pulls the sawdust to the middle of the cut rather than trying to force it to the outside.
okay,
It's mainly used it's mainly used for cutting veneer. It's kind of a something they use for veneer, but you don't need to use a negative rake. It's just, I don't know, it's just my preference. You could
Okay.
use whatever rake that you can afford to buy. You know, it's whatever price range you want to spend for blades.
Gotcha.
This blade is a Timberwolf blade, and I think it was around $45 to $60, depending on where you buy it from.
Okay.
What vendor you buy it from. And this saw takes an unusual size. It's a grizzly. It's a 19-inch throat with a 12-inch rip, and it takes a 143-inch blade, which is an oddball. Most people don't have blades that long. The shorter blades are easier to find. I have to special order mine every time I order them, because
we see
or
the
I
back?
have them made.
Can we see
What's
the
that?
back side of, can we see the back side of the jig again?
Sure.
I gotta get a picture in my head of how I'm gonna build this.
So there's what it looks like on the backside. It's got 2 T-tracks set at whatever distance you want. I set mine in 8 inches from each end, centered on 8 inches. I figured that was good, and I just used T-bolts that you can buy anywhere. And then it just has just wing nuts. And if I'd had wing nuts,
some
there
of
would
those
have been
pictures of that on the website.
Yeah, I will take some pictures of this and send it to the website so you can see how, and I'll take it apart so you can see how it's put together.
That's a great jig. Scott. Really a wonderful jig.
Yes.
Very good.
This is one of 3 that you'll see tonight. So I'm gonna set this one aside, and I'll set up another one.
Sweet.
So this is a jig for cutting if you don't have a chop saw, or sometimes like I do, I get it in the woods and I forget how tall my blanks got to be, and I cut them too long. So now I can take this jig, I'm going to back you up, and I'm going to show you how it saws. Let's see if I can get the picture of the blade. And I'm going to take a piece here. You can see I cut this piece way too long. I wasn't thinking when I cut this up. So now I'm going to set this in here. I'm going to adjust this up. Got to find a tape measure here somewhere. Put my eye protection on that I forgot to do before. Normally I wear a face mask when I do this that I use for turning, but in this case, I don't think you'd hear my mic underneath the face mask. So what I did is I marked where this saw will cut, and you can see that I'm a little short. So I'm going to find a little block of wood just to stabilize this in my notches. And I'm just going to cut this off. If you can hear my saw, it's pretty loud.
God, the
So now I
Zoom's,
just made
Zoom's muffling that great.
good. So I just cut that blank now where I can run it underneath my bearings. I hope. So that's all it is it's just 245-degree angles. I'll set you back up here. It's just 245-degree angles screwed to a plate, and it's got a piece to go in my T-track, and it just slides back and forth. And you can cut any length limb or log, whatever. This one's big, so I can do big chunks. You know, sometimes I get really goofy when I'm out cutting wood and don't think. Sometimes I don't have a tape measure and I just guess, and I'm always wrong. So I just,
Hey,
so
Scott,
this is my, yeah.
do you treat your saw bed or the bottom of your thing of your jig to make it move smoother?
My saw bed, I can't talk. My saw bed has T9 5 coats. It's like a piece of glass. I polished it first with up to 1500 grit wet dry sandpaper, and then I put T9 on it. And every time I'm done sawing, it gets another coat of T9. That's why this slides so nice.
Thank you.
So the other thing that I have that is a little hard to find, you can see that white piece there. My uncle used to work for a conveyor company that made conveyors for Miller Brewing Company and Pepsi. This material is called Hyfax. It's what they used in their conveyors to keep the cans and bottles from wearing out their conveyors. It was put in the corners and straightaways. And it's what holds the cans and bottles upright from falling over, hopefully. And it's got a light vegetable oil impregnated in it. So it's really super slick. If you can find a plastic shop in your area, you can probably get this, and they might call it a different name, but it's just, all it is a oil infused plastic that it doesn't leave an oil residue. It'll never leach, but as it wears, it just leaves a thin film of oil on the plastic. And I'll warn you, if you go to buy it, it's expensive. So if you can find somebody that's in the conveyor business and ask them if they can give you some scrap, because they throw this stuff away. And what they do is they take, as it wears on the conveyor, they throw the chunks away. It starts out as a 3/4 inch piece or a 1 inch piece, and as it wears down, they throw it away. And it's just scrap to them. And it works good. You can cut the wear off of it and then reuse it. For whatever reason, they don't build adjustments in their conveyors to adjust it over. They just take it off and throw it away. So it's nice stuff to work with. I get it when I see my uncle, I get it in 24-inch lengths, and it's usually about 3 inches wide. I usually get the cut off of a 20-foot stick of it. So I have some that I'll never give away because he doesn't work there anymore and he retired. So I don't have that luxury of getting it anytime I want it. Now it's a little more work. But all my jigs have this runner on it because it's so slick and smooth. Well, that's my crosscut sled.
Do you cut that plastic on the table saw?
Yes, it cuts just like if you used HTP, which you can readily buy on eBay or somewhere like that, Amazon. It's the same type of plastic. It just doesn't have the oil in it. The stuff that if you buy HTP or UTP,
Yeah.
high plastic, it just doesn't have oil in it. That's the only difference. It's all, you can even turn this stuff. I've even turned this on a lathe to make a mandrel, if you can find it big enough. So now I'll show you, I'm going to put you over here and point you down. This is how I saw blanks. So I hate blanks that split. So if you can see the center of this blank, here's the pith. And I need a pencil. This is, can you see that? Can somebody tell me if you can see that? This is the pith. This is the center of the tree, the part I'm coloring.
Yep.
So you want to cut a 1/2 inch each side of that pith if you don't want this to split. So I'm going to take this log, and instead of running it through the other machine, I'm going to cut on those lines. So one of the safety things I do, I put gloves on just so I can get a good feel of the log, because there's no revolving parts here except for the blade. And when you put your hands on this blank to run it through here, don't curl your fingers over the ends like you would naturally think you should do, because you can't see your fingertips out here. So you got to stake your fingers, and you want them where you can visually see them straight on. And I'm just going to push this blank through. I'll show that now. Just like that. So now I want to cut the other part of the center out. So now I'm going to take a push stick to keep my fingers away from the blade. Now you have, this is probably a little thin for most of you, but I can get a bowl blank out of that end. That probably wasn't the best log to show you on. This is a piece of tamarack, which is real white. And if you put oil on it, it's going to turn yellow. You can see how kind of yellows on the end. So has anybody got a question on how I do that?
Are you going to show us how to cut out a circular bowl blank also?
Yep,
Yes.
that's coming next.
Patience.
All right, cool.
Patience.
Patience, my
Matt.
son.
Patience, Matt.
Patience.
Patience,
So I'm gonna-
grasshopper.
Hey, at least I'm awake and paying attention, you guys. Come on.
Hey, that's a bonus there. That's always a bonus.
Hey,
So
and that
you can
piece,
see,
the piece
Go
you
ahead.
cut out of the center, that's quarter sawn.
that is
Sure
correct.
is.
Yep.
Don't throw it
So
away.
that either in my case goes to making little boxes, jewelry boxes,
Yeah.
or
Bachelors.
some people gonna cringe when I say this, I cut it into pen blanks.
Ooh,
Bachelors.
Or spatula handles.
I oohed that one.
ooh, that's great.
So now if you look at this log, this pith is way over here. So I can get a heck of a nice bowl blank, thick bowl blank out of this. So I'm gonna split this one and then we'll turn it into a bowl blank. And I do this by eye. I don't usually draw lines. So you can see how nice that saw cuts. It's pretty smooth. That blade cuts real nice.
What blade do you
So
got on there now?
that's a Timberwolf negative rake. I think it's 1 or 2 teeth per inch, maybe 3 teeth per inch, and it's a half. I think it's a ½ inch, half or 3/4. That's pretty much what I run most of the time. ½ inch. So you can get these blades for most of your bandsaws. Most Timberwolf makes blades for just about every bandsaw. So now I've cut the pith out of this, and you can see this is cracked. Matt might know what this wood is. I think they have it in Michigan. It's called Hopa tree. Where I'm from here in Wisconsin, our city is known as the Hopa tree capital of the world. We have
Hopa
more
tree.
Hopa tree, HOPPA. And it's a form of an apple tree, but it never gets apples on it. It flowers like an apple tree.
It's an ornamental crab apple. Okay.
Yep, it's in that family of tree. So you know how apple likes to crack. This was cut 3 years ago. It's been in my drying shed for 3 years with the ends painted, and you can see how much it's cracked. But they're not very deep in here. So now you can either slice the sides off if you want to, or you can make a bowl blank out of it. I'm going to try to make one where I can save the bark, hopefully. So now I'm gonna put on my next jig for you. And this is the one I think Matt wants to see.
There's the show, Buster. Matt, you
Clean this
awake?
track out.
Yeah, I'm awake. I got dogs that keep me awake too, so.
And the trick is getting it set in the track. So now this slides on here like this. This is my circle cutting jig. This moves in and out. It has a lock, so it only goes so far. This taper here is for relief to get the sawdust out of the way, because now you don't have a way to suck it into your machine if you have air assist. And this thing, and get all my stuff out of my way. I'm actually going to cut a few circles for you just because I got stuff out. So this has a locking nut underneath, and this track slides in and out. Okay. So you want to make this whatever circle size you want. I got to grab a drill. We're going to need a drill. This is a 1/4 inch peg. I also have one, if I don't want to drill a 1/4 inch hole in something, I have one that's got a point on it that you can replace it. It's just a screw threaded into that bar. And I don't know if you can see this. Can you see that? Can't tell.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the one with the point on it. So I just took it to the grinder and ground a point on it, and it threads in that same position. So if you don't want a hole in something because you don't know which side you want to be your finish side or your coring side or whatever, you can do that, and you don't have such a big hole to try to replace. So now, where did I just put that piece? This is a pretty nice piece. So I'm going to set this up here. And hopefully you guys can see that. And I have a big circle cutting template. And I'm just going to take, just because you guys can't see the lines and I can, I'm going to put this will be my center mark on the backside. And I just pound that in there a little ways. And this is enough bulb length that I can cut out this hole that I'm going to drill in here. And it looks like I can get a pretty much an 8-inch circle out of this. So I'm going to draw an 8-inch circle in here just so I remember what I drew or what I wanted it to be. And then wouldn't you know, my nail had to pop out. Only on a demo.
Of course.
Never fails.
Never fails. But we'll pound it in a little farther because we're going to drill a hole anyways. So I just draw a circle on here. I'll slide this out so I can go all the way around. Pull my nail out. Now I have my center point. Like so. Now I have a perfect circle. Now you could either cut this by hand, or you can use this fancy jig I have. I'm going to use the jig because my circle will come out almost perfectly round. And these you can buy anywhere. They have them at all the box store, the woodworking stores, wherever. I don't even know where I bought this one. I think it came out of Lee Valley, actually. And it just gets magneted up to my saw. Now I'm going to take a drill bit that's just a hair bigger than 1/4 inch. And drill a small pilot hole. And I'm going to measure that just to make sure that it's 8 inches. What I said it was going to be, and it is. So now I'm going to cheat a little bit. Get a different ruler. I'm an old-fashioned stick ruler guy. I like them better than a ruler. I have a line scribed on this piece here, which I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's the center line of that bolt. So now I'm going to cheat that bolt in so that it's exactly 4 inches, which is half of the 8-inch circle. Tight to my blade. I'm gonna tighten that down so that can't slide. Then you back this up like this, because you never start out on the right on the circle. I'm gonna try to get this in that hole, which sometimes is a real trick.
Hmm. Okay, so we got a board here.
Come on. There we go. It's almost on there. I thought. I'm gonna wobble the hole out just a little bit to make it a little easier to go on there. There, now we got it on there. So now you noticed I got this jig pulled backwards because the log is bigger than because I cut this at 12 inches, so it's bigger than what my circle is going to be at 8 inches. So now to start this, I'm going to push this into the blade, and you can watch from there. Come on.
Only on a demo.
The trick is to get it turning.
I don't think you're deep enough into the cut.
And I'm going to slide this down a little. That'll help too. Come on.
Keep pushing away from you. Keep
Yep,
pushing
hang
away
on.
from you because
Yeah,
it's not
bind
hitting
the
this.
The sawdust is binding it. That's the problem. There we go.
Beautiful. Yes, beautiful.
Once you get it figured out, it works pretty good. And you can see that I ended up right back where I started. And my circle is cut right on my black line, or pretty close to it anyways. So there, now you have a round blank that you can either turn with the bark on or the bark off, however you want.
That is cool.
Scott, there's a lead and follow part
Yep.
on that. All right, tell us what it is.
It's
All right,
far as what do you
where that blade,
as far as what do you mean?
that blade
The lead
is
and the
lined up.
Yep,
That blade is lined up with the center of that dowel.
that is correct.
Okay, that's critical because if you're one way or the other, you're cutting
Right.
out of you're not cutting concentric. You're not following a
So-
true line.
So you can see I have this bar split as well. Let me get some of the sawdust out of there. There's a line in the center of this bar, which lines up right at the tip of that tooth, right there. This line and this tip of this tooth are about as close as you're ever going to get them. So you can slide this out as far as you want. I don't know if you can see that. I slid it out quite a ways. So this jig right now, the way I have it set up, I can cut a 24-inch radius.
Wow.
I can take this bar out. I can cut as small as 4 inches this way. This is my 4-inch mark. If I take this and flip this over,
Hmm.
Now I can
Oh.
cut 2-inch circles. And then I can cut infinite number this way. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
It's whatever, wherever you put this locking bolt. Can you see that down there? This is the locking bolt that rides in this track. And it's just got a thumb screw on the bottom, a thumb nut.
It slides over and supports that sliding
It
rail.
locks,
Hmm.
it locks the riding rail. So that's all that's in there. And this bolt goes through here like this,
Oh, I see.
threads on like that. You push it up, get the flats of the nut in the track. And there you go.
Just a
Now it slides.
T-track turned upside down.
T-track turned
Correct.
upside down. That's all it is.
What did you call that bolt?
It's just a 1/4-inch bolt that you buy at the hardware store.
Oh, just a regular bolt.
It's a
Just a
cradle
regular
bolt,
bolt.
Brenda.
A what?
Yep. It's just a bolt.
Cradle bolt.
Cradle.
And I drilled out the T-slot a little bit so that round-headed 1/4-inch screw would go through there. I just took a whatever you got to make it a little bit bigger just so that it slides in there.
Hmm. That's what,
And
half
then you can see
on the bottom?
it just, what's that?
That 1/2-inch
What, Brenda?
plywood?
This is actually 3/4-inch plywood because these tracks are roughly a 1/2 inch thick. So you only have really about a 1/4 inch of that holding that on there. One of the things you got to make sure of if you take this track out, that you get it cleaned out on the bottom, because it will ride proud then after that if you get sawdust down on this track.
Mhm.
So how I made this track is I made it on a table saw, put my dado blade in,
Hmm.
figured where I wanted the center of the track to be. And that's what's centered on my dado blade, and cut my appropriate dado for the T-slot that I have. And you have to measure all these because they're not all the same. And then you just run this in, run it past so that you have a place for the sawdust to come out of here. You just stop the saw, you run it past this line, and you stop the saw and wait for your table saw to stop, and then you just pick this up and it makes that slope for you because it's working off the back curve of the blade.
You got a board on the bottom of that to stop it, you say too, right?
Yep. So to stop it advancing, I just have a board here that's screwed to the bottom, and it hits my table.
Right.
Just hits on the edge of my table. You could hit on the edge of your fence, whatever, just so it's a stop. It's just got to stop so that it can't slide past that slot. So when you make this table, when you make this platform, the first thing you have to do is screw the track so it slides in your T-slot. Then you put this on where you want it to stop in this table, where you want the front edge of this blade to stop. Then you run it in and cut this kerf before you cut this piece here in, because you need to know where the tip of this blade is. So I can tell where the tip of this blade is to stop this dado, or center this dado, by the end of the cut. My cut only goes to the end of this blade.
You cut that slot before you did the dado blade?
Yep, I cut this slot before I did the dado.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah,
That's how you
Why I did
end
that?
up centering it in your dado blade, because you cut that blade, bandsaw blade first, and then you can measure it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then you'll have it right every time.
Yeah.
Gotta be 90 degrees too.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it has to be
Perfect.
90
Yeah.
degrees.
Oh, yeah.
And by
that's-
cutting this first, you automatically make this 90 degrees. This edge doesn't matter because you're not measuring from here. You know,
And your
Yeah.
you're
stop
measuring
makes
from
it, yeah.
from the blade
okay.
to here. The other thing you can do, I'll set you back up here. If you're really concerned about 90 degrees, you can take a machinist square, set it up here. Let me get this out of here. And now you can set that up there to make sure you have 90 degrees. You can set it on this line, and essentially you'll get 90 degrees to the saw cut like this. Now you can get the center of that dado cut. There's the center. And you can line it up because you got your end of your slot, you know where the end of the tooth is. So now you know where the center of this line's got to be. That makes sense to everybody?
Mhm.
Yep.
So these pieces I also don't throw away. These get made into bottle stopper blanks like this. I cut them into bottle stopper blanks, or I cut them into pen blanks, finial tops, whatever you want. Knobs, you could make knobs out of them, whatever you want to do. So, any other questions? How am I doing on time, Dane?
We're doing good. We got 2 questions.
Okay.
Craig, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I was curious. I've got a lot lower powered bandsaw than you got. I got one of the Win 10-inch bandsaws, and the blades you're using and everything. My 3 TPI blade, it's a lot lower power than yours, I'm sure, but it takes a lot more time for me to get through the wood, even though it's only like a 5 or 6 inch throat.
Yep. So
I was curious, the blades you use, are they that much better than some of the other general blades that are out there?
in my opinion, yes. That's only my opinion. I mean, anybody else might tell you different. Some manufacturers might tell you different, but in my opinion, Timberwolves are the best blades on the market for their money.
Okay. Yeah, because I've got a small shop, so I can't really put a big bandsaw in my. I've only got a 10x20 building that's been decked out with insulation and drywall, so not a whole lot of room. We got to keep things small.
Yep, my shop is 16x20. I have a 52-inch Powermatic 66 table saw. I have a Craftsman saw set 90 degrees to that one. They're back to back. And then I have a 6-foot door that I made into a table, a solid core door that I made into a workbench. And
Okay.
you're looking at my lathe area. Before I get done here, I'll show you my shop area, so you can see. And my wife calls me the wood hoarder. I can't ever throw anything away and can't turn down anybody that wants to give me free stuff. So
yeah, I've got a
wood.
No, just gonna say I got a bucket right next to my bandsaw for all of the real small stuff. I use it for kindling, and the other stuff I save for different projects like you do.
Yep. So I have a cousin that burns wood, so he takes anything that I can't make into something, he burns it.
There you go.
I have a pellet stove. I don't know if you heard me telling Matt earlier, I have a pellet stove. And I don't know if most of you guys probably don't know what a pellet stove is, but they take sawdust like this. They can back it into a pellet.
Yeah.
Which is 1 inch long and about 1/8 inch in diameter. And it burns in an enclosed stove. And it's actually EPA rated. You can get a tax break for burning pellets.
Okay. Well, I know they got grills with the pellets too.
Yep. It's the same pellet. It's just in the grills, they tend to use like apple or hickory, where these pellets are either softwood or hardwood, and you get whatever you get.
Right.
So my sawdust, as long as I don't pick it off the floor, there's a place here where I live that actually makes pellets. They take my sawdust off my dust collector as long as there's no metal and it doesn't have any sand in it.
Cool.
Hey, Scott.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
Can we go back to Craig's question? I just want to follow up, and I'd like for you to expand on it.
Sure.
Keep in mind, even if you got a smaller throated bandsaw and you're going to have the corresponding smaller horsepower motor,
Right.
you're still going to be able to cut blanks like that, but you've just got to slow your feed down. You got to let on a bandsaw, you have to let the blade cut the wood. You can't be forcing it.
Right.
Well, you seen what I did when I forced it. This has got a 7-horse 220 motor on it, which is putting out some pretty good power. I
Yep.
can stop this blade with a blank. If I put too much pressure on it, it'll grab that blade and tear it right off the wheels if I don't stop pushing on it. You gotta just let the saw do the work. It doesn't matter what blade you use. Let the saw do the work.
Oh yeah, I
Feed
do
it at
that. It's just
You just got to
Oh,
feed it at the
those-
rate that you're feeding it. Now, like on your saw, I would probably go down to a blade, and I'm not sure what kind of saw you have, what brand.
it's a
But if you
win.
could-
WEN.
Okay. It's a win. So this is a 1/4-inch blade. You could probably go down to a 1/4 or 3/8 on your win because it's not big and it doesn't have a lot of power.
Right.
And you probably want to go to a 2 or a 3/2 per inch blade. The more gullet you have, the faster you
Yeah.
can cut with it. The tighter the teeth are together, the less it pulls the chips away from there's no room for the chips is I guess the best
Right.
way of putting it. It doesn't have a place to get rid of the dust. And that's one of the disadvantages of this table is it doesn't have a place to get rid of the dust. I've seen guys take and drill holes in here, down in here. It doesn't seem to help. You just got to clean it between cuts. That's all there is to it. Just keep your brush handy. Like my brush hangs right here next to the saw. And
Yeah.
before I do another bowl, I would just brush this out. Just to give that blade some relief.
No, I like that
Dude.
guide though.
It's nothing fancy. It's pretty basic.
Are you running a vacuum on your saw when you run the saw?
Yeah, I
Shop.
have a 4-inch dust collector hose that's curled up on the floor at the moment, and the dust collector's right there.
Yeah.
It's about 6 feet away. So normally I would run that, but being that it's a demo, you'd never hear me.
Right.
That 3-horse dust collector you'd never hear anything that I was trying to do, and the vibration would probably vibrate the camera because it vibrates everything in this shop. It really got a lot of vibration in it.
And dust collection really isn't needed for demoing.
And
Billy
dust-
Bert's got
Go
a
ahead.
question for you, Scott.
Go for it, Billy.
I didn't know I had a question.
Dane said you had a question.
You said you had a question. Okay, that's fine.
No,
That's fine.
I made a comment, but I didn't say I had a question.
Oh,
Well-
okay. Yeah, you said something about saw blades.
Oh.
but- Okay.
So
Well,
it got-
I said I've used a number of brands of bandsaw blades, and for my money, nothing's better than a Timberwolf. I said I'd
A
do.
lot of folks, I think a
He
lot of
was-
folks would agree with that.
Yeah, I think Matt
I use
said
Timberwolf.
Matt or somebody said they used quarter sawn cutoffs, those quarter sawn boards, and
Yep.
I said I do as well. In fact, I'll often resaw mine and make wider book match boards out of them, and I do all kinds of things with them.
yeah,
Yeah, jewelry boxes. yeah.
It's whatever your mind can come up with.
Yep.
Yeah, I
what-
actually made a plate out of one of those pith bits in the middle that
Yep.
didn't warp.
Yeah. If you
It
cut
didn't
them
work
right,
or didn't work.
It did not warp. It,
Wow.
you know,
Oh, okay.
I got
it
lucky.
didn't work.
Yeah, I usually
I thought
cut
you said work.
I usually cut the pith out of those boards. I just make 2 boards out of the middle
Yeah,
piece.
I use it for fine jewelry boxes or spatulas, one or the other.
You can make
So this is-
finials out of them too.
so this is a piece of
Oh, yeah.
catalpa I cut up. This is a piece of catalpa I cut about 6 months ago, maybe. And you can see that it's not warped and it was green when I cut it. And here's the pith. If it's true quarter sawn, it won't
Wow.
warp. Or
Yeah,
it shouldn't
that's
warp.
what I was thinking too.
If you truly quarter sawed it, like what you see in the books and magazines, it should not warp. Theoretically. Now that's not always true, but it does most of the time hold true. So I got another blank. I don't know how well you guys can see this. This is something Dane and I were talking about the other day when he was helping me set up for this demo. This is a piece of spalted ash, which I spalted myself. It wasn't spalted when I cut it down. It was still very healthy tree. So I spalted this myself. All you need is beer, sugar, and a drill bit. And a place to put it outside where it stays damp. So I store mine. The beer gives you the yeast and some sugar. And you use the sugar to create more sugar because fungus lives on sugar. So when you want to spalt, it works better if you use green wood or wood that hasn't been kiln dried. You can do it on kiln dried, but it takes a little more work. So what I do is I take and drill holes in the bark, and they're usually a 1/2-inch hole, just whatever I got around that day. And I pack that beer mash into the holes, and I put it under spruce trees for this piece was laying out for almost a year, and you can see that it's spalted. It's spalted in here. And that spalting will actually be up in here. So I found a website that talks about how to spalt stuff. My computer crashed today. So next week I'll put it in the chat, the link to where you can get the article on how to spalt your own wood. But one of the things you have to remember about spalting, you're dealing with fungus. So when you're cutting it, the reason I'm not cutting any for you tonight is you got to wear one of these. Because if that gets in your lungs, you end up with blastomycosis and it'll kill you. In this area of the country, we lose a lot of dogs to blastomycosis because it lives in the leaves and on the ground of rotting soil or rotting wood. It's very dangerous. So if
I
you're
can
going to spalt,
testify to you're being honest, because I have had blastomycosis.
Yep, it's a
The
scary
closest
thing.
to death I've ever been.
Yep. If you've had COVID, blasto is worse than COVID. But they don't talk about blasto because it doesn't spread like other things. You have to get it from rotting soil, rotten wood, whatever. Now I've touched this piece tonight. My clothes, I bring a change of clothes to my workshop, keep them in a plastic bag. And I will not walk into my house where my dogs are with the clothes I have on tonight. I'll change my clothes in the workshop before I go back to the house, along with my shoes.
Spalting, that aging.
What kind of mat are you using?
This is a RZ.
Okay.
So it has a high particulate filter on the inside, which is changeable. And it has a washable outside.
You like them?
I love them. I actually have 3 of them.
I have 2.
Can you breathe very well in them?
Yes.
Yes. So they come with different filters. This one is just a plain filter. And then they also come with a charcoal filter.
I usually activate charcoal.
Yep. So if I was going to do a lot of stuff that's spalted, I would have my charcoal. I actually have one of these with a charcoal filter in it that I wear when I cut spalted lumber.
What is that thing called?
RZ.
RZ mask.
RZ dust mask.
Yep.
Don't be confused by you'll find cheap knockoffs on Amazon. Don't buy them. Buy the RZ.
Yep.
Okay.
They sell these. I know they sell them at Woodcraft. Our local Ace Hardware sells them, and I don't know if all Ace Hardwares do, but I know the one I have here locally does. And I highly recommend them. I use it for everything. I use it on the lathe. I use it on the table saw. I even use it when I'm outside cutting wood with a chainsaw. especially if I'm cutting stuff that's rotten.
Based on safety, and I was going to ask Dave about this anyways, maybe people could write in reviews on what they wear as a dust mask so that new turners or even old time turners can look at the different things and say, okay, this is how much money I have to spend. How good is this mask? Because a lot of times I just don't trust what they have on the internet. And where I would rather trust you guys. So like I know a lot of you have the that one mask that also is a breathing face mask with a breathing apparatus.
Trend.
That's it,
Trend.
trend mask. There's the RZ mask. I get emails about that all the time. I've got a couple other masks that I can change out the charcoal filters all the time. But you know, sometimes you just want to cut a piece of wood without your eyes and fogging up, if you know what I'm saying. And I
Yep.
wondered how RZ was doing.
The RZs do not fog up your
Oh, okay.
glasses
No,
Okay.
because they have air valves in them.
right.
That's an air valve. So when,
That-
to change this, you got to turn this, pull that out, and then it actually is what holding your inside filter in.
And
Okay.
when you exhale, it goes through those little black things.
Yep, it only goes out on the exhale. It does not come in on the inhale.
No, there's a flapper inside.
There's
Hey,
a
Billy, do you
flapper
have any
gate.
trouble? Excuse me, Billy, do you have any trouble with a beard with that?
Mm-mm.
No,
No,
If you
because it comes in so tight under my chin between between my beard itself and how tight I get it when I put it on, nothing's going to get past that.
yeah, it's Velcro, so it Velcros around you. It's not like what fits over your ears.
Right.
I don't know if you can see that. I can't see my
Yeah.
camera. So
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the RZ mask because I was tempted to buy a couple of those a few months ago.
the other nice thing about RZ is they're 100% made in the USA. They're made in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Well, that's good.
That's the reason I bought them. That's how I started. I didn't know anything about them. And when I found out they were made in the US, I said, hey, I'm buying one. So they come in a nice bag to store them in. So I store them in my shop like that. And there's a charcoal filter.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It's just got a different color. And they come with a charcoal filter. If you want the low restriction, the easier breathing filter, you have to order them separately.
Yeah, I prefer the charcoal filter.
Yeah, I stick with the activated charcoal. That's just me.
Yeah.
I've had bronchitis so many times that I can't breathe through the charcoal ones. I actually feel like I'm suffocating. So one other thing I want to talk about quick. How many of you know that trees also carry arsenic?
What?
Yeah.
Some trees are worse than others. And a lot of you guys turn a tree that's very high in arsenic when it's green.
Talking walnut?
Walnut.
That's a piece of walnut. This is actually spalted walnut that I spalted myself. So you see all the white is gone. It won't have any white sapwood in it when I turn it. This is one of the most toxic woods that you'll deal with next to the cherry trees that come out of Maine. There are some cherry trees in Maine, and I'm not talking cherries that you eat, cherry trees that are trees, not fruit trees. There's one in Maine that there's so much arsenic in the bark, when you cut it down, it'll absorb through your hands.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, walnut trees will do the same thing when they're green, only when they're green. They lose their toxicity as soon as they become dry. So you'll notice I don't have any bark on any of my walnut. It comes off when it's green because I don't want that arsenic around, because I have dogs. And if a dog chews on that arsenic, which
They're dead.
where this tree came from, my cousin's dog chewed on some of the bark and some of the cutoffs when we were cutting walnut trees out of his yard. The dog was on life support for almost 3 weeks.
Oh my,
Oh, my
It's
goodness.
lucky lucky it didn't die. I mean, it was very close, and it came on within 24 hours.
boy, you
So-
learn something new every day. I had no idea.
Wow.
Yep. So cherry trees, walnut trees, any tree in the apple family, and the apple seeds are terrible bad. Don't let your animals ever eat apple seeds. Those are the worst for arsenic. So all you guys, please be careful when you're playing with your walnut. Wear a respirator. If you're spalting it, for sure wear a respirator if it's spalted like this stuff, even though this is
Oh.
bone dry.
I'm assuming it varies, depends on what part of the country it comes from too, doesn't it?
Nope, walnut trees, no matter where they come from, are the highest in arsenic, according to the literature I've read.
Huh.
Yeah, but they have to get it out of the ground. They can't get it any other way, so.
Right. So if you know somebody that's got a walnut tree in their yard, go look at how good the grass grows underneath that walnut tree. It doesn't grow very good.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
And it doesn't grow very good under a true cherry tree either.
And nothing else grows there either.
No, right, Matt. There's nothing else grows there either. So I just want,
Anybody with parrots, do not feed your parrots apple cores. It's because of that. If you got, a parrot, you feed them lots of vegetables and fruits and all of that. If you do your apples, then pull those seeds out before you give the bird that.
You also can't use walnut shavings for horses or any of the animals. It comes up through their hoofs.
Yep,
Yeah.
that is correct too.
Yep.
So I have a few friends that have horses. They won't even take my shavings because they don't trust they don't have any cherry
No.
or apple, cherry or walnut shavings in the shavings. And I'm really careful if I know I'm giving it to somebody. I make darn sure there's nothing in there that's toxic. That is
If you
clean
want to
and
get your
dry.
flowering, if you
Eddie,
want to
Go
have
ahead,
your
Eddie.
if you want to have your flowering plants stop flowering, sprinkle that walnut around them. That will give your rose bushes look like a thorn bush.
Yep.
It's very hard on them. And
We have
I only read about that. It didn't happen to me.
We have a plant here that crawls in our grass and we call it Creeping Charlie. When I want to get rid of it, I just take some walnut dust and put over the top of try to find one end or the other of the plant and surround it with some walnut dust. Within a week, it's gone. It dies. So it's an interesting thing. And so there's a lot of other woods out there that are toxic too, but just, if you're not familiar with something, by all means, get out on a website. There's a good website out there that we've talked about it a few times in our meetings. Go look up the toxicity and learn about it. Make sure you wash your hands when you're done, because you don't know, especially the exotic stuff. You don't know where it came from or what the toxicity level is, because if you don't know the correct genus name for it, you won't find it.
I must say thank you, because I had no idea about the toxicity levels being that high. And I must say thank you. I appreciate that info.
Yeah.
It's just something to be aware of. You don't have to be scared of it. It's just be aware of it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to show you another piece of wood here that I have. Matt will know what this is. Anybody from the north will know what it is. This is sumac.
Yeah.
So you see it growing alongside the roads in the northern central U.S.
Isn't that poison?
It is not.
Not, okay.
The Native Americans, and the reason I know this, because I have a Native American friend that does this for me. He picks the berries, the red berries that you see on the top of it in the fall.
Yeah.
You'll pick those red berries, he mashes them with a potato masher, and he makes red dye. So the Indian tribes around here, some of their face paint is made from the berries off this tree. It is not toxic. Now, it does cause dermatitis if you look it up on the internet, but just about every wood that you mess with can cause dermatitis. It's just another thing to be careful of. But this stuff is gorgeous when it's turned. It's got natural gold tone with natural green tone. And I'll show
berries
some
are-
stuff.
Those berries are very high in vitamin C too, if you make tea out of it.
Yes, the Native Americans
That's
also drink the tea. So I find it bothers me the most when it's green. So I let it dry before I do anything with it. It tends to give me a rash sometimes if I cut it into blanks when it's green. So I let it dry out. I cut it into chunks like this and let it dry out before I do anything with it.
God, is that
But never-
staghorn sumac?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So
Don't confuse that with poison sumac. There is a poison sumac.
So here's the difference. Poison sumac is a plant. This is a tree. They're totally two different animals. Poison sumac has leaves that oscillate one across from another like a ladder, like a ship's ladder. And it has a white berry in the fall with a white flower in the spring. It's poison sumac. Ask me how I know that.
Western New York, that's all we had was poison sumac. And I wouldn't touch sumac in Florida.
And sumac is like a regular sumac. White and red sumac is like a herringbone.
Yep.
Okay.
So poison sumac, if I get within 3 feet of it or I see it, I got it.
Yep.
It's nasty.
Me
And
too.
it's twice as bad as poison ivy. The only thing I found that's worse than that is poison oak. And I stay away from that too, because I'm a lucky one that's allergic to that too. And I worked 30 years of field road construction. So guess how many years in a row I've had either poison ivy, poison sumac, or poison oak.
Too many.
Yeah, poison oak is nasty. I agree with that for sure.
Yeah.
I retired last April.
Breathing it.
I retired last April and I had poison oak when I left, and I still have poison oak.
Oh my gosh.
Oh boy.
I can't get rid of it. The doctors can't get rid of it. It comes and goes.
Man,
I've had it so many times it's in my system and it just comes and goes. They treat it like eczema.
Wow.
When I get a bad flare up, they give me antibiotics to keep it out of my blood. And then a week or two, it's gone. I just have a scar from it. Like right now, it's driving me nuts because it's like 80 degrees in my shop. And the more you sweat, the more it itches.
Yeah.
Don't get in the smoke of it either if they're burning it, because you can get it internally.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where is
Plus you
your
don't know it and
that it's 80 degrees?
downstream from it.
What's that, Sue?
Where is your shop that it's 80 degrees?
I have a pellet stove in my shop that runs on heat setting 1, and it's 80 degrees. Right now, I'm looking at the thermometer, and it's 80 degrees in here.
Okay.
And once you get the shop warm because of the size of it, and I get all the cast iron machines warm, they're just like radiators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. That's a good problem to have in that cold weather up there.
Yep. So the last 3 days, just so in case anybody hasn't been watching our lovely weather, it rained. It's been in the 40s and rained here for the last 3 days.
Oh, that's awful.
So tonight at midnight, we go in a winter storm warning, and we're gonna get 5 to 8 inches of snow in 12 hours.
Oh my.
And then I'm sending it to Matt because he's across the pond from me.
Yeah,
Where are you located?
I'm watching that sucker, dude. It's coming.
No warning.
And Dane, I feel sorry for you. I hope you make it to where you're going.
Yeah, I know. I had to modify my luggage because I packed some sweaters this time, and so now I don't have that many clothes for my next John up there. So, but whatever, I'm going to be warm, so I don't care.
So does anybody else want to see something made into a circle, or did everybody
Yes.
get the general idea?
No good. Do it again. Do it again.
Yeah, Brenda.
Do it again. Do it again.
Well, I can do it again. That's not a
Scott?
problem. Yeah.
Scott, you did an excellent demo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, very
You did an
informative.
excellent demo.